I never thought I'd be spilling my guts on here like this, but after everything that's happened, I need to get it out. Maybe someone reading this has been through the same quiet hell and can tell me I'm not crazy. Or maybe I'm just yelling into the void. Either way, here goes. I'm 28 now, working in a mid-sized office in a bustling city where the buildings all blend together and the traffic never stops. It's one of those places where you spend most of your day staring at screens, crunching numbers for reports that no one really reads. I started this job about 3 years ago, right after I moved here from a smaller town up north. I was fresh out of a breakup that wasn't dramatic, just two people realizing they didn't fit anymore, and I figured a new start would help me shake off the dust. That's when I met him. Let's call him Alex, though that's not his real name. He was already there, a couple years older than me, with this easygoing vibe that made the office feel less like a cage. We didn't hit it off right away. It was gradual, like how you don't notice the seasons changing until you're knee-deep in leaves. Our first real interaction was during a team lunch at a nearby cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and overpriced salads. I was nervous, being the new person, and I spilled my drink all over the table. Everyone laughed it off, but Alex grabbed some napkins and helped clean up without making a big deal. "Happens to the best of us," he said with a grin that crinkled the corners of his eyes. From then on, we'd chat in the break room. Nothing deep at first, just complaining about the coffee machine that always jammed or sharing memes from our phones. As weeks turned into months, those chats got longer. We'd linger by the water cooler, talking about books we'd read. He was into these gritty detective novels, the ones with flawed heroes who chain smoke and question everything. I'd recommend lighter stuff, like stories about people finding themselves on road trips, and he'd tease me about being an optimist. "You think everyone's got a happy ending waiting?" he'd ask, but not in a mean way, just curious like he wanted to believe it too. I started looking forward to those moments, replaying them in my head on the commute home in my compact car, stuck in gridlock. I'd noticed little things about him, how he fidgeted with his pen during meetings, or the way he'd push his glasses up when he was thinking hard. He had this quiet intensity, like he was always piecing together a puzzle in his mind. Work projects pulled us closer. We got assigned to the same team for a big client presentation, which meant late afternoons, huddled over spreadsheets in the conference room. The office would empty out, lights dimming in the hallways, and it'd just be us with takeout containers scattered around. He'd make jokes to break the tension, like imitating our boss's overly enthusiastic emails, and I'd laugh harder than I should. One evening, as we wrapped up, he walked me to the parking garage because it was getting dark early. "Can't have you navigating that maze alone," he said. My heart did this stupid flip, but I played it cool. Back home in my one-bedroom apartment, with its second-hand couch and plants I kept forgetting to water, I'd overthink every word. Was he just being nice? Or was there something there? It built up slowly, this feeling. I'd catch myself smiling at my phone when he'd text about a funny article he saw, or I'd linger in the mirror a bit longer before work, wondering if he'd notice my new haircut. But I kept it buried, because what if I was wrong? I'd been there before, reading too much into friendliness, and it always ended with me feeling foolish. Still, the hope crept in. We'd grab coffee together sometimes, not dates, just quick breaks from the desk. He'd talk about his weekends, hiking trails on the outskirts, or fixing up his old bike in the garage. I'd share about my attempts at baking, how I'd burned a batch of cookies but eaten them anyway. It felt natural, like we were syncing up. Then, about 6 months in, things started feeling heavier for me. I'd lie awake at night, the city sounds filtering through my window, sirens in the distance, neighbours arguing faintly, wondering if he felt it too. I started noticing how he'd light up when talking about certain things, like his dream of travelling to see ancient ruins someday. "You should come along," he said once, offhand, and I froze, my mind racing. Was that an invitation? I mumbled something non-committal, scared to push. The emotional weight was building. I felt vulnerable, like I was handing him pieces of myself without knowing if he'd hold them carefully. One day, we were in the elevator, just the two of us, heading down after a long meeting. He mentioned grabbing dinner with friends that weekend. Yeah, my girlfriend suggested this new spot, he said casually, checking his phone. My stomach dropped. Girlfriend? But then he added, she used to love trying weird fusion food. Used to? Past tense? My brain latched onto that, replaying it. Maybe they broke up recently. Maybe it was over. The elevator doors opened and I forced a smile, but inside a spark of misguided hope ignited. Little did I know, I'd completely misheard him. Or maybe I heard what I wanted to. God, reliving this is harder than I thought. After that elevator moment, I convinced myself his used to meant something. I didn't ask outright, too chicken for that, but I started paying closer attention, looking for signs. Work became this weird mix of excitement and anxiety. I'd arrive early, hoping to catch him in the kitchen making his usual black coffee, no sugar. We'd talk about the latest office drama, like how the sales team botched a deal and everyone was scrambling. He'd lean against the counter, arms crossed, and listen to my rants with this patient nod. You're right, that's messed up, he'd say, and it'd feel like validation, like he got me. Our project wrapped up successfully, and the team celebrated with drinks at a local bar after hours. Nothing fancy, just dim lights, sticky tables, and pitchers of beer. Alex sat next to me, our knees brushing under the table accidentally. Or was it? I overanalyzed every touch, every glance. He shared stories from his college days, how he'd backpacked through national parks on a shoestring budget, sleeping in a tent that leaked during rainstorms. I opened up about my own awkward phase, admitting I'd once dyed my hair bright red on a whim and regretted it instantly. We laughed until our sides hurt, and as the night wound down, he offered to share a ride home since we lived in vaguely the same direction. In the back of the cab, the city lights blurring past, he said, "You're easy to talk to, you know that?" My pulse raced. Easy to talk to, friend zone or flirtation. I couldn't tell. Back in my routine, the feelings deepened. I'd find excuses to email him non-work stuff, like links to podcasts we'd discussed. He'd reply quickly, with thoughtful comments that showed he'd actually listened. One afternoon, during a slow day, we took a walk around the block to stretch our legs. The air was crisp, leaves crunching underfoot from the nearby trees lining the sidewalk. He talked about feeling stuck sometimes, like the job was safe but not fulfilling. Ever think about quitting and just going? He asked. I nodded, sharing my own dreams of writing a book someday, something personal about family ties. He encouraged me, saying I had a way with words. Moments like that made me feel seen, but also terrified. What if I confessed and ruined it all? The internal tug-of-war was exhausting. I'd confide in my journal at night, scribbling pages about the what-ifs while sipping herbal tea to calm my nerves. My apartment felt lonelier those days, the silence amplified by the hum of the fridge. I'd scroll through old photos on my phone, wondering why I couldn't just move on. But then he'd pop up in chat the next day, asking how my weekend was, and it'd start over. I started noticing his habits more, the way he'd rub his neck when stressed, or how he'd always have a spare charger for anyone who needed it. Small kindnesses that chipped away at my resolve. We got pulled into another collaboration, this time on a tight deadline. Late nights again, but now with more tension for me. We'd order food delivery, pizza one time with extra cheese because he remembered I liked it that way. As we worked, our conversations veered personal. He opened up about his family, how his parents' divorce when he was a kid made him cautious about relationships. I don't want to repeat that cycle, he said quietly, staring at his laptop. I shared about my own fears, how my last relationship fizzled because we stopped communicating. It felt intimate, like peeling back layers. But I held back the big truth, scared it'd shatter the fragile balance. One morning, I came in to find a gift on my desk, a paperback of that road trip book we'd talked about weeks ago. My heart soared. It had to be from him. Who else knew? I glanced over at his cubicle. He was typing away, but caught my eye and smiled. I mouthed, "Thank you," assuming it was his doing. The note inside was simple. "Thought you'd enjoy this." Team? Team? But his signature was at the bottom, separate from the others. Wait, did he organize it? Or was it just a group thing? The confusion hit like a wave, but the personal touch reignited that damn hope, twisting everything anew. Okay, deep breath. After the book incident, I was a mess of mixed signals. Part of me wanted to confront it, ask if he meant something by signing it personally, but the fear of awkwardness at work kept me silent. Instead, I threw myself into distractions. I signed up for an evening class at the community centre, something low-key like pottery, where I'd shape clay into wonky bowls while my mind wandered back to him. The instructor, an older woman with paint-splattered hands, would say, "Let it form naturally," and I'd think about how nothing in my life felt natural anymore. I'd come home with clay under my nails, exhausted but not enough to stop the overthinking. At the office, things escalated subtly. We'd have these impromptu lunches, grabbing sandwiches from the deli across the street and eating in the park nearby. Benches under shady trees, pigeons scavenging crumbs. He'd talk about his hobbies more, how he was teaching himself guitar, fingers calloused from strings. I'd listen, imagining him playing soft tunes on a quiet evening. One time, he asked about my dating life out of nowhere. "Anyone special?" he said, biting into his sandwich. I froze, mustard dripping onto my napkin. "Nah, just focusing on me," I lied, my voice steadier than I felt. He nodded, saying something about how hard it was to find real connections these days. Was that a hint, or just conversation? The ambiguity was killing me. Emotionally, I was unraveling. I'd cry in the shower sometimes, hot water mixing with tears, feeling pathetic for pining like a teenager. My friends from back home would call, asking how the city was treating me, and I'd deflect with stories about work without mentioning him. But inside, the crush had morphed into something deeper, a longing for companionship that he represented. I started analyzing my own patterns. Why did I always fall for the unavailable ones? Maybe it was safer, no risk of real hurt if it never started. Therapy crossed my mind, but I pushed it aside, telling myself it was just a phase. Work dynamics shifted when a new project lead paired us with others, diluting our one-on-one time. I felt the loss acutely, like a routine disrupted. But then he'd seek me out anyway, dropping by my desk with questions that could have been emails. "Hey, quick thought on this report," he'd say, lingering longer than needed. One afternoon, during a team brainstorming session in the break room, our ideas bounced off each other seamlessly. The boss even commented, "You two make a great pair." Everyone chuckled, but my cheeks burned. Alex just grinned, unfazed. That night, I paced my living room, debating a text. I typed and deleted a dozen versions, casual invites for coffee outside work. Finally, I sent one, "Hey, want to check out that bookstore we talked about sometime?" His reply came quick, "Sounds fun." This weekend, my heart leaped. Progress. The date wasn't a date, but it felt close. We met at the shop, shelves crammed with used books smelling of old paper. We wandered aisles, pulling volumes and reading blurbs aloud. He found a rare edition of one of his detective favourites and insisted on buying it for me. "Payment for all the project saves," he joked. I protested, but accepted, my fingers brushing his during the exchange. Walking out, we grabbed ice cream from a vendor cart, cones melting in the sun. Conversation flowed, dreams, regrets, the little things that shaped us. He mentioned feeling lonely sometimes, despite friends. "It's weird, right? Being surrounded but still." He trailed off. I nodded, my own isolation mirroring his. For a moment, it felt like we were on the cusp, but reality crept back. Back at work, he was the same friendly guy, no follow-up on the outing. I started doubting again. Was I projecting? The emotional toll showed. I snapped at a colleague over a minor error, then apologized profusely. Nights were restless, replaying every interaction like a detective in one of his books. I confided in an online forum anonymously, reading stories of others in similar limbo, feeling less alone but no clearer. Then the turning point loomed. A company retreat was announced, a weekend at a lakeside cabin for team building. Excitement buzzed, but for me it was a chance to gauge things. Packing my bag with casual clothes and a swimsuit I hoped looked flattering, I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. Maybe away from the office something would shift. Little did I know it would, but not how I expected. The retreat was a game changer, but in ways that cracked me open. We drove up in a caravan of cars, winding roads flanked by trees turning autumn colours. I rode with a few co-workers, but Alex was in another vehicle. Arriving at the cabin, a rustic place with wooden beams and a stone fireplace, the air smelled of pine and lake water. Activities kicked off, group hikes, trust falls, the usual corporate bonding stuff. Alex and I ended up on the same team for a scavenger hunt, racing through trails to find clues. We'd high-five on successes, breathless and laughing. During downtime by the fire pit, roasting marshmallows, he sat close, our shoulders touching. Stories flowed under the stars, childhood memories, embarrassing moments. He shared about a bad breakup years ago, how it made him gun-shy. "I guess I'm better at friendships," he said softly. My heart ached. Was that about us? That night, insomnia hit hard. The cabin creaked with unfamiliar sounds, bunk beds squeaking as others slept. I slipped outside for air, wrapping a blanket around me. To my surprise, Alex was there too, staring at the lake. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. We talked for hours, whispers in the dark. I mustered courage, saying, I really value our talks." "It's special." He smiled. "Me too. You're one of the good ones." But then he added, "Like a sister I never had." Sister. The word landed like a punch, but I masked it with a laugh. Inside, rejection simmered, subtle but sharp. Back at work post-retreat, the dynamic felt off. He'd still chat, but I pulled back, protecting myself. I focused on other things, joined a running group, pounding pavement in the early mornings, endorphins chasing away the ache. But the hurt lingered, manifesting in quiet moments, like staring at the book he'd bought, now gathering dust on my shelf. I realized the unrequited part wasn't just about him. It was me chasing an ideal, ignoring red flags. Climax came unexpectedly. During a coffee run, I overheard him on the phone in the hallway. "Yeah, babe, I'll be home soon." "Babe?" My mishearing from months ago clarified. He'd said, "My girlfriend suggests," present tense. She'd been there all along, long distance or something he kept private. Devastated, I confronted him gently later, in the parking lot after hours. "I think I misread things," I admitted, voice shaky. He looked surprised, then guilty. "I'm sorry if I gave mixed signals." I value our friendship a lot. But then the twist, he confessed he'd had a fleeting crush too, early on, but pushed it aside because of his relationship. "Timing's everything, huh?" he said ruefully. It was mutual, briefly, but life got in the way. The revelation floored me, not rejection, but missed opportunity. Emotions crashed, relief at truth, sorrow for what-ifs, anger at myself for not asking sooner. I took a few days off, driving aimlessly to clear my head, windows down, wind whipping my hair. Reflective walks in the park helped process how unrequited love often stems from our own unmet needs, projecting onto others. Healing didn't happen overnight. It was messy, like piecing together a puzzle with missing edges. After the confession, work was awkward at first, avoided eye contact, brief nods in meetings. But time softened it. I requested a transfer to another department, citing growth opportunities, and it was approved. New team, fresh faces, less reminders. Alex and I exchanged polite messages occasionally, fading to acquaintances. His girlfriend moved to town eventually. I saw them once at a company event, hand in hand, and felt a pang but no bitterness. Self-discovery bloomed from the ashes. I dove into therapy, unpacking patterns from past relationships, how I romanticized ambiguity to avoid vulnerability. Sessions in a quiet office with a kind counselor helped reframe. It wasn't failure, but a lesson in communication. I started dating casually, apps and setups from friends, focusing on clarity from the start. One guy, a teacher I met at a book club, shared my love for stories without the office complications. It fizzled naturally, but taught me to voice needs early. Everyday life regained colour. Mornings with coffee on my balcony, watching the city wake. Weekends exploring trails alone, backpack heavy with water and snacks, finding solace in solitude. I finished that book I'd planned, a memoirish thing about navigating 20s uncertainties, self-published online. Readers messaged, relating to the raw bits, mirroring my forum post here. Reflecting now, the experience shaped me profoundly. Unrequited love isn't just pain, it's a mirror to our depths, fears, hopes, growth edges. I emerged stronger, less afraid of rejection, more attuned to my worth. Life's unpredictable. What felt like heartbreak was redirection. If you're reading this in similar shoes, know it's okay to feel it all. It passes, and what's left is you, a bit wiser, ready for whatever comes next. Thanks for listening.